The gate was closed. I could see the tail of the Air Canada plane through the terminal window, already being pushed back from the jet bridge, and I stood there with my laptop bag in one hand and a security bin in the other, completely unable to process what I was seeing. Adrian had boarded without me. I want to tell you that I cried, or that I screamed his name across the Cancun terminal the way you see women do in films. Dramatically, uselessly. But I didn't. I stood there for perhaps 30 seconds, watching the maple leaf on the tail fin catch the late afternoon Mexican sun as the plane began its slow turn. And then I picked up my bag and walked to the Air Canada customer service desk, because there was nothing else to do. His name was Adrian. Mine is Vera. We had been married 4 years. Married in Stratford, on the October-long weekend, in my parents' backyard, with 40 people, and my mother Carol's vegetable garden as a backdrop. The trip to Mexico was supposed to be a belated celebration. Adrian's idea, actually. He'd said we needed to reconnect. He'd booked the resort in the Riviera Maya himself, arranged a sunset sailing excursion for the second evening, done the whole thing with a care I hadn't seen from him in months, and I had been so relieved that I let myself believe in it completely. The security officer at Cancun had pulled me for secondary screening because of a spare power bank I'd completely forgotten was tucked into the side pocket of my carry-on, my work laptop bag, which I'd packed and repacked hundreds of times without thinking. He needed to check the battery capacity. The whole process took 11 minutes. I know the exact number because I watched the boarding countdown on my phone the entire time, and I sent Adrian 2 texts, and both of them showed as read. He read them. He got on the plane. At the customer service desk, I asked the agent about the next available flight to Toronto. She found a connection through Mexico City, arriving at Pearson just before midnight. She ran our joint visa for the change fee. Declined. I switched to contactless, declined again. I apologized, pulled my personal visa from the inner pocket of my bag. I have always kept a card separate, not from distrust, just habit, and paid the fee myself. Then I found a quiet seating area and opened our banking app. I'm a forensic accountant. My firm is brought in when companies suspect internal fraud, when estates become contested, when divorces turn complex, and someone needs to find where the money actually went. I understand financial records the way other people understand handwriting: pattern, intention, deviation. It takes me about 90 seconds to look at a set of transactions and know whether something is wrong. The joint account had been placed on hold at 7:14 that morning. The request had been submitted through the online banking portal. The verification had passed. The account holder listed as initiating the hold was Adrian. At 7:14, I had been in the shower. Adrian had been in the hotel lobby. I scrolled back through 6 months of transaction history. Interac e-transfers are the most ordinary thing in Canadian life. You send money to a friend for splitting dinner, to a landlord for deposits, to a contractor who doesn't take cards. Adrian had sent 11 of them over 5 months to a name I'd never seen before. Lacey Drummond. 400 here, 800 there. Then a $300 one in March. A $2,800 one in April. One last month with Miss in the memo field. $4,100. There was also a charge from a jewelry boutique on Bloor Street in February. Valentine's weekend, $2,400. A Marriott hotel charge in Ottawa. On a Friday, I clearly remembered Adrian telling me he had a site visit in Hamilton, and a $12,000 wire to a real estate brokerage on King Street West that I had absolutely no memory of approving. That last one was the one that made my hands go still. I knew that brokerage. I'd been brought in to review their internal processes during an audit 2 years earlier. They were a boutique firm, mostly pre-construction condos in the GTA. You don't send $12,000 to a pre-construction brokerage unless you're holding a unit. I went back to the hotel. I took a taxi, paid in cash from leftover tip money. At the front desk, I asked whether any items had been left in our room. Nothing, the staff member said. And then, perhaps because I was standing very still and my face was doing something it usually doesn't do, she asked if everything was all right. I said, "My husband checked out this morning. Did he check out of just our room?" She looked at her screen. She started a careful, professional sentence and then stopped somewhere in the middle of it. "There were 2 rooms checked out under the same last name this morning," she said. "The second one was booked separately." I thanked her and sat in the lobby. The second room had been booked for a Ms. Lacey Drummond. She had been here, at this resort, the entire time Adrian and I had been trying to reconnect. I ordered a coffee from the lobby cafe, dark and unsweetened, and I sat with it and thought about the sailing excursion on day 2 that had only been 2 hours instead of 4. About Adrian coming back from the gym every morning with his hair damp and his eyes somewhere past me. About the way he'd laughed at something on his phone at dinner and immediately turned the screen face down. Then I went upstairs, opened my laptop, and went to work. I had access to our joint accounts, to the credit card statements that still came to our shared email address, to the digital receipts we'd stored in a shared folder for tax season. I wasn't accessing anything I wasn't entitled to. I was simply reading what had always been available and had never needed reading. Lacey Drummond had received $18,400 in Interac transfers over 8 months. The Bloor Street jewelry charge corresponded to Valentine's Day. The Ottawa Hotel was the same weekend. The Hamilton site visit had been a trip to the capital with who was not me. The $12,000 wire to the King Street brokerage matched the timing of a pre-construction condo project. I found after 20 minutes of searching public listings. I created a folder on my desktop, labeled it Adebayo Family Law, and moved everything into it. Then I backed it to a cloud drive Adrian couldn't reach. Outside the window, the Cancun sky had turned orange at the horizon. I had 2 hours before my flight. I called Priya, my closest friend. She's the kind of person who answers on the second ring, regardless of what she's doing. He left me at the airport, I said. And I think he's been with someone else for close to a year. Priya was quiet for 3 seconds exactly. Then she said, "Tell me everything. I'm not going anywhere." So I did. The flight to Mexico City was short, the connection to Toronto longer. I spent most of it with my headphones in, watching the dark landscape below, organizing what I knew into sequence. Not grieving yet, not ready to grieve yet. Just building the structure, the way I always do when the numbers have said something I need to act on. Pearson was gray and cold when we landed, which felt appropriate. I texted Adrian from the arrivals level. "I'm back. I know about Lacey. I know about the transfers. I know about the condo deposit. Don't call tonight." 47 seconds later. "You don't know what you think you know. Come home and we'll talk." I took a screenshot, put my phone away, and went to Priya's apartment in the annex, where she had tea waiting and the spare room made up. The next morning, I was at a family law firm on Bay Street by 9. The lawyer who met with me was named Christine. Mid-40s, composed in the way that comes from having seen a great deal. She asked me to walk her through everything in order. I opened my laptop and walked her through it. She didn't interrupt once. When I finished, she said, "You mentioned you're a forensic accountant." "Yes." "That explains the organization." She picked up her pen. "All right. Ontario works on equalization of net family property. What each party brought in versus what they're leaving with. If he's been redirecting joint assets to a third party, that's dissipation, and we can argue for compensation. The condo deposit is significant. The Interac transfers during the marriage are significant. The account hold. His lawyer will call it protective, but the timing will undercut that argument considerably." She paused. "What I need you to do now is go to your condo and collect your personal documents. Passport, SIN card, your own financial records. Bring someone. Document everything." Priya met me at the building an hour later. Adrian was home. He opened the door looking like he hadn't slept, and when he saw Priya behind me, something moved across his face before he found his persuasion voice. The one I recognized from 4 years of marriage, the low and measured tone he used when he needed me to agree with something I didn't quite want to agree with. "Vera, can we talk, just the two of us?" "No." I walked past him into the hallway. "I'm getting my documents." I went to the small office off the bedroom and pulled what I needed from the filing cabinet. My passport, my SIN card, my employment contract, the savings bond my father Martin had bought when I graduated. In the bottom drawer of Adrian's desk, I saw the corner of an accordion folder I didn't recognize. I didn't touch it. I photographed it where it sat, the brown edge visible beneath a Rogers bill, and walked out. Adrian followed me to the kitchen. The transfers to Lacey. I was helping her through a hard time. It wasn't what you're thinking. $18,000 over 8 months. It wasn't all at once. No. It was carefully spaced. The way you space transfers when you're trying to avoid automatic flagging. I watched his face. "I've spent 15 years identifying that pattern in other people's accounts, Adrian." He was quiet for a moment. "The condo is a private investment." "Under whose name?" Silence. My lawyer will be in touch about disclosure. You've already. He straightened up, the persuasion voice gone. Vera, don't turn this into a legal war. 4 years. We have 4 years. If you blow this into pieces. You blew it up, I said. At gate C14, when you read my messages and got on the plane. He had no answer for that. I picked up my bag and left with Priya, and I did not look back at the condo with its balcony, where we'd had coffee on Saturday mornings, its furniture we'd chosen together, its view of the city that I had once genuinely loved. Some things, once you see them clearly, you stop needing. That evening, Lacey Drummond sent me a message on Instagram. Her account was Travel Photos and Interior Design. She was 7 years younger than me. Her message said, Adrian told me you were already separated, that the divorce was just a matter of paperwork. I want you to know I didn't know the full truth. I read it twice. I thought about the hotel room at the resort, the deliberate booking, the timing of the Bloor Street jewelry purchase. Then I sent her Christine's contact information and said, if you have any documentation of what he told you about the condo or his finances, please send it to my lawyer. It will matter. 2 days later, she did. What Lacey sent was a WhatsApp thread going back 11 months. Adrian telling her the condo was going in her name, paid from his personal portfolio. Adrian asking her to keep things quiet until the paperwork was finalized. Adrian telling her, this one I read 3 times, that I had already agreed to a quiet separation and was just being slow about making it official. He had built an entire parallel story. A full architecture of lies with load-bearing walls and a timeline and a condo in North York as the foundation. The disclosure process Christine initiated over the following weeks revealed something more. 14 months ago, 2.5 years into our marriage, Adrian had opened a numbered company. A move I'd seen clients use in my own work when they're trying to quietly move assets before ending a relationship. Through the company, he had been funneling a portion of his real estate commission income. The company had paid for the Bloor Street jewelry, the Ottawa hotel, and 2 other trips I hadn't known about. It had also funded the first installment on the condo. I sat in Christine's office when she walked me through the findings and felt the cold, clarifying feeling of reading the evidence of your own life. He planned this, I said. It wasn't a question. The numbered company was incorporated 14 months ago. The condo deposit 8 months ago. The account hold the morning of your flight. She paused. In my experience, this level of coordination takes time and intention. I thought about Adrian booking the anniversary trip, his idea, his choice of resort. He had needed a reason to get me out of the country. A context in which ending things would look like my emotional instability rather than his calculated exit. He had needed me stranded in Cancun, with no access to money so he could come home and begin the next phase of his plan while I was still trying to find a flight back. If I hadn't had that separate Visa card, I might have been. Mediation was in November. Adrian came with his lawyer and an offer to buy me out of the Leslieville condo at current market value and call it settled. Christine laid out what we were actually asking for. Equalization of net family property, compensation for diverted assets, including the condo deposit and the Interact transfers, and full disclosure of the numbered company's accounts. His lawyer argued the numbered company predated the marriage. Christine produced the incorporation documents. 14 months ago. 4-year marriage. The room went quiet in a particular way. We settled 3 weeks later. The Leslieville condo would be sold, equity split. The condo deposit classified as a dissipated marital asset and compensated. The Interact transfers factored into the equalization. The numbered company accounts frozen pending final review. Adrian signed everything on a Wednesday in December without looking at me, and I found I had no particular need for him to. The divorce was finalized in the spring. The Leslieville condo sold quickly. It always does, spring market in Toronto. And I used my share to put a deposit on a smaller place in Riverdale, closer to my parents, with a second bedroom I've turned into a proper home office. My mother Carol cried when I showed her the space. My father Martin didn't cry, but he helped carry boxes and refused to let me pay for lunch. Priya came over the first Saturday after I moved in. We ate takeout on the floor because I hadn't bought a table yet, and she said, "You know what I keep thinking about? The power bank." What about it? If you hadn't had it in your bag, they wouldn't have pulled you. You'd have made the flight. You'd have sat next to him, all the way to Pearson, not knowing any of it. I thought about that. He would have found another way. He already had the plan. The company, the condo, the account hold. It was all in place. But you'd have believed him longer. Maybe. Probably. I don't know how much longer I'd have gone on, believing the version of Adrian he was willing to let me see. What I know is this. I am 37, I live in a neighborhood I love, I have work I'm genuinely good at, and I wake up in the morning without the quiet vigilance of someone always reading the room for someone else's mood. I have my parents, I have Priya. I have the kind of uncrowded stillness I didn't know I was missing until I finally stopped living without it. Lacey wrote once more, months later, to say the condo agreement had been unwound. The developer had agreed to release the contract, given the legal circumstances, and that she'd moved back to Calgary. She said she was sorry. I didn't write back immediately. Eventually, I wrote, I hope you do better for yourself going forward. I meant it, and I was a little surprised that I did. There's a Tim Hortons on my way to work where I stop most mornings. Double, same as I've ordered since university. The woman on the early shift recognized me after about 2 weeks and started having it ready when she saw me come through the door. One of those small, ordinary Toronto kindnesses that I find unexpectedly moving. Some mornings I stand there waiting and I think about Gate C14 in Cancun. The light through the terminal windows. The plane backing slowly away from the jet bridge. The absolute stillness of understanding that the person around whom you had organized your life had read your words and chosen, very deliberately, not to wait. And then I think, the power bank did me a favor. Not because it didn't hurt. It did, and some days it still does, in the way that any real loss leaves something behind. But the woman who stood in that terminal, watching the plane pull away, had spent years making herself smaller to fit inside someone else's plan. The woman who walked out of that airport, calm, evidence building, flight rebooked on her own card, was someone I hadn't properly met yet. I like her considerably more than the version of me that almost stayed.